All right, welcome to this narration of how to set up your Excel spreadsheet for the Rocket Lab. Number one, we want to begin by just getting our pop test data into the spreadsheet. So we're going to go ahead and add pop test as a title. We'll do the ratio of oxygen to hydrogen here. And we did multiple trials, so trial 1, trial 2, etc. Rather than typing out all the trials, I'm going to go to the lower right hand corner and drag these over here. Excel will auto predict what I want next. If that's not working for you, you could type in trial 3, trial 4, trial 5 if you want. Now the first ratio that we did was 6:0, oxygen to hydrogen. When I go like that, Excel is going to think I'm trying to put in a time, and I just forgot a 0. So to fix that, I can go to this box up here and tell Excel, no, this is a text. Please don't mess around with what I'm trying to do. Go back and say, hey, 6:0. That's what I actually want. I'll get the same issue for these down here unless I go ahead and make them a text file in advance. Now I can enter 5:1, 4:2, 3:3, 2:4, 1:5, and 0:6. Once you have your data table set up for the pop test, you need to enter all of the data for all the trials you have right here. So please pause the video and resume when you come back to that step. Okay. At this point, you should have all of your raw data into the Excel spreadsheet. We're going to want to add parts H and loudness to the side here. We'll be computing the average loudness for each ratio. And in order to help graphing later, I'll just write down the parts H in each of these mixtures. So 6:0 had 0 parts H, 5:1 had 1 part H. You could type 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but Excel can make that prediction for us by going to the lower right hand corner and dragging that over. Now to figure out the average loudness, we're going to tell Excel we're using an equation or a formula. So hit the equal sign, and I can start typing in the word average. If I click on the word average, you'll see it gives me an open parentheses. All I need to do is select the data I want, hit close parentheses, and when I hit enter, that will compute the average for me. Once again, equals, start typing the word average. Once it auto-suggests, it'll give me the open parentheses, select the data I want, close parentheses, and equal. I could do this every time, but let's use a trick. Drag this down here, and it will copy the formula, changing which row I'm looking at. So this is row 5 here, row 6, row 7, row 8. So Excel is really helping us out. All right, so that didn't take too long. We're going to have the same basic structure for the launch test. So we could go ahead and retype all this stuff, but why do extra work? I'm going to select all this, copy it, Control C, drag it down a few rows, hit Control V, and now I have the same exact thing. You'll notice that the formula is updated to the proper rows. So now that's on 14, 15, 16, etc. Let's change the name of this to launch test. And we'll call this the distance. Now, of course, all this data here is from the pop test, so I need to get rid of it. You'll see some errors over here, but those will go away once you've entered in your distances for the launch test. Please go ahead, pause the video now, enter in all of your distances for the launch test, and resume when you have that in there. Okay, so at this point, you should have something that looks kind of like this. And we're going to want to take this data, and we're going to want to graph it. In order to graph the data, we're going to come up here and select the cells that we want to include. I'm going to include the parts H and the loudness as well, because that will help me have labels pre-established. So select all that. It doesn't matter where the white box is, by the way. That's just always whatever cursor or whatever cell you started out with. Shouldn't matter. Go to Insert, and we're going to go to the Scatter Plot, and we'll just pick this first one that just has the dots. And boom, there you go. You can see it's been given the title of loudness on the top. It's got the axes set up. This is not an ideal graph, though, because if you didn't know what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 were on the bottom, on the side, it wouldn't be very helpful for you. So I want to change or add some axis titles. Primary horizontal axis on the bottom, title below axis. This is the parts hydrogen. It's been added there. And let us go ahead and add a rotated title to the vertical axis. This will be the loudness. It's always nice to have a unit. We didn't measure the volume quantitatively, but just our perception of the volume. So I said perceived volume. Hit OK. There you go. That title could be a little bit better. So why don't we go to Chart Title, Edit Chart Title, and we'll say loudness of combusting hydrogen and oxygen at various ratios. It doesn't have to be exactly that, but it's a pretty descriptive title, so I know what to expect when I'm looking at the graph. Go ahead and follow a similar process for the launch test so that you have two graphs with titles, things that are labeled, etc. Pause the video and resume when you are ready. All right, so now you should have a couple of graphs that look something like this. Don't worry if they're kind of overlapping like mine are. We're going to want to go ahead and add trend lines to this. However, we can't do that in the online version of Excel. So the way around that is to come up here, click Open in Excel. And so if you have a PC, you can say yes, open Excel, and actually add in the trend lines that we need. So now I am in the PC version of Excel, and we're going to be adding some trend lines. Let me just scoot up this frame here so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. So clicking on the graph, you can see that we have options here to do many different things. We're going to go to the plus sign right here, and we're going to add a chart element, in this case a trend line. If I just clicked here, it would give me a boring linear trend line, which doesn't really match our data. So instead, I'm going to go to the drop-down menu, and then it says More Options. I know that's kind of cut off. Click More Options. There you go. And a polynomial is actually the kind of graph we want. So that is how we're going to do. Second order polynomial is great. Go ahead, pause the video, and make sure you have the trend line on both of your graphs. Okay, at this point, you should have your two graphs with the polynomial trend lines, and they're looking pretty good. There's a couple issues with them that I think it would make sense to correct. So looking first at the loudness, you'll see that, at least in my graph, it says 0 parts hydrogen actually has a negative loudness. It's below the axis, which I don't even know what negative loudness would mean. That doesn't make sense to me. So I want to go ahead and change the y-intercept to have 0 parts hydrogen be 0 loudness. The way to do that is if you're in the Format Trendline window, which you can get back to by going to Chart Elements, Trendline, and then More Options, right? I'll get you here. And we're going to go ahead and set intercept button to 0. That's cool right there. And so go ahead and update yours. Alright, so the last thing we want to do is fix the graph for the distance traveled by the rocket. Most of us did not test all 6 or all 7 ratios of the different amounts of hydrogen. And so the graph is a little weird. You can see it thinks that it didn't go any distance at all for the ones that I didn't test. And that's not a reasonable assumption. So we're going to go back to this one. We're going to change which data it's trying to graph. The way to do that is just to go down to this filter on the bottom, select it, and we want to select data. You can see here it's asking me, okay, which part of this chart do I want to include? And I'm just going to highlight the ones that actually have data. When I hit enter, you'll see that I'm just graphing the parts where I have data, which makes a lot of sense. All right, cool. Well, hopefully this was helpful for you. We're going to need to transfer this information into Microsoft Word, but that's an easier process, so I can probably help you one-on-one or just show the whole class at the time. All right, have fun.